Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the channel here for this installment of the John Campea Show podcast. I am, of course, your host, John Campea, and it is an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you, our international friends, gather around as we talk about our favorite things in the world, movies and movie news, TV and streaming, and all sorts of good stuff. Not just giving you our opinions, but also giving you some information and context so you guys can form your own well-informed opinions, whether they're the same or completely different than ours. Jonathan Voiko had some home responsibilities today, so I gave him the day off. So that's why we're doing the show from inside my my little office here. But I'm not alone. Joining me today is the one, the only, Chris Carr. Chris, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Coming to you once again from inside the booth.
It's funny now because I can actually see the sound crates on your wall.
Well, we got a light.
Oh, yes, which you look much, yes, now we can see more of your face, which is...
Now I'm not just in a cave. But
which looks really good.
Paneling everywhere. We've got, it's like several multiple layers of wood paneling throughout everything too. So this is my panic room. I come in here and panic.
But for those who are watching and may not know exactly why you have this soundproof panic room at your house, why do you have this room at your place?
So this is where I record my voiceovers and also where my clients record for their demos. So this is where I have all of my soundproofing so that I can give like professional quality VO whenever, because most of the time now I don't even go to a studio. I usually just record from home for video games, commercials, and that sort of thing. I know other people can come here too and do it themselves.
That is so creative. I actually got to get one of those in my place. And listen, most importantly, you guys are here. Thanks so much for being here and making the show part of your day. We got a number of things we're going to talk about as main topics. And then in the last part of the show, for those of you who are watching live, we're going to take your live questions. Now, normally we also take questions from our beloved YouTube channel members, but I don't have Jonathan here today to arrange all that. So we're just going to take super chats from those of you guys who are watching live. And if you send in a super chat with an appropriate topic or question, we will address it at or near the end of the show. All right, guys, with all that down, let's jump into it with this, shall we? I love the Max streaming service. It's one of the favorites that I have, not my absolute favorite, but one of the favorites that I have. And yesterday I got a little bit of a notification from Max saying, hey, there are changes coming to your subscription service, because I have their ad-free subscription service at $14.99. I'm like, uh-oh. What's coming now? Well, this is what's coming. This comes from the folks at Variety who wrote the following. Max this week began notifying subscribers to its standard ad-free plan priced at $15.99. I said 14, it's $15.99 per month or $149.99 per year, that the service will no longer include 4K titles, with full HD at 1080p as the top resolution available, and that they will be able to stream only on 2 devices simultaneously, down from 3 before. Going forward, 4K content will be available only in Max's Ultimate ad-free plan, which starts at $19.99 per month, or $5 extra per year, or $200 a year, and provides the ability to watch on up to 4 concurrent streams. Okay, so I'm going to be honest with you. Somebody brought this up on the open mic that I did yesterday. Number one, I was happy that we were not getting another price increase, because as soon as I saw a notification from Max and it's saying, notice about changes to your plan, the very first thing I think obviously is they're about to do another price increase. They're not. Okay, so the 2 primary changes. No 4K. By the way, a lot of the content they already had anyway wasn't in 4K to start with, but they did have a selection of stuff that was in 4K. That's no longer going to be available to me unless I bump up to the $20 a month plan. And I can only stream on 2 devices at the same time as opposed to 3. All right. For me, this is pretty much a non-issue, to be honest with you. Like, look, does 4K look really good? Sure. But I've said this before, and I'll say it again here. The difference between good 1080p HD and 4K is not nearly as noticeable as, say, when we made the jump from standard def to HD. Like, the difference between going from DVD quality to HD 1080p, that was a remarkable shift. The difference between 1080p and 4K isn't that much. And honestly, it's been proven that in many cases, it's not even noticeable depending on, number one, the size of your screen, and number two, the distance you are from your screen, because the human eye can only perceive so much. So to be honest, to me, would I prefer it in 4K? Yes. Is it a big deal to me that it's not 4K? Honestly, no. 1080p HD on the TV I have looks magnificent. So it's not that big of a deal, all right? If I could pick one, I'd take the 4K, but it's not that big of a loss. The second thing about streaming on multiple devices, honestly, for me, that is also not that big of a deal. Now, it might be for some other people. Maybe you live in a household with 5 or 6 people living in your household, and you could have 3 or 4 people at different parts of the house trying to stream Max all at the same time. I highly doubt that happens often. Because, I mean, I'm sure 3 or 4 people streaming at more than once, but they're probably watching Netflix or YouTube or Peacock or something, Disney Plus too. But whatever, maybe that will happen. In my house, it never happens. Granted, there's only 2 people in my house, but there's not even a time when Ann and I are both streaming Max in different rooms. So it's not that big of a deal. So is it a change? Yes. Will it affect some? Yes. But Chris, I'll be honest with you. I would much rather, once I got into the email, I was much happier seeing, okay, everything's going to be in 1080 and you can only stream on 2 devices instead of 3. I would much rather see that than see your ad-free plan has gone from $15.99 a month to $18.99 a month. Like, so to me, it's not that big of a deal, but I'm seeing some people online who are really kind of upset about this. You heard about these changes. How big of a deal do you think they are?
I don't think they're a super huge deal, but I can understand people being frustrated with this change because it is, hey, we're going to charge you the same amount of money for less.
Yeah, right? We're taking away what we were giving you.
Something. And I can understand that. Now, for tech people, for cinephiles, that 1080 versus 4K can be something that they really, really care about, right? Rob, for example.
Yeah, I was going to say Rob will be a prime example of that.
Yeah, but I talked to my parents about this morning of, hey, what do you guys think about the HBO switch? And what are you talking about? And, oh, it's going to go from this to that. My mom said, what's the difference? So I think for a lot of your average viewers, it's not something that really is going to move the needle for them either way. And I think if it was a price increase overall for everything they were doing, then they'd be a little bit more annoyed. But I totally understand why people feel this way. I do have to come clean about the multiple devices thing. Much like Ray Ora uses Campea Plus.
Yes.
I use what I call PD Plus. So my brother from another PD gives me his login. And so I've been using that. So I don't know how much longer I'm going to have HBO. I need to pony up because y'all know I'm cheap. I'm very, very cheap. So I need to do this myself because I love the content there. But I do wonder about how this is going to overall affect things at HBO. You know, earlier when they had the merger between HBO and Discovery, there was a loss of subscribers, which people at HBO attributed to that kind of overlap of, oh, of course, it's because some people had both and we're losing people because of that. But in a time where people are really looking at what streamers to keep, what streamers to purge, especially with everyone raising their prices, I'm wondering what HBO is going to do to sweeten the deal. Because they are offering about a $40 discount for their yearly plan here. So it's not as huge of a financial shift if you do want that 4K jump, which is about $4 more a month. But I'm wondering if people are going to just be fueled by their outrage and take to Twitter more.
But that's the next question I was going to ask you, though, is, okay, so the next tier up is $4 extra a month. It's from the difference between $15.99 to $19.99. How many people, I know for me, because the 4K is not that big of a deal, and because of the fact that I don't care if I can stream on more than 2 devices at one time, I have no interest in jumping up to the $19.99. Do you think, though, for people who the 4K is important, that $4 price difference will be attractive enough to jump up to it, or is it too much of a leap for more people to jump? How do you think most people are going to respond to that?
You know, again, I think it depends on how many streamers you have. If this is one of 6, maybe you're going to second guess yourself on getting that. If you are so inclined to have 4K, if you are the kind of person who comes over to someone's house and goes, oh God, the motion smoothness, I have to recalibrate your television. You're going to pay for this, right? All my PA friends, all of my
By the way,
friends,
Rob has done that in my house.
Oh, yeah.
Just going to say.
I've had friends come over and go, "Dear God, Car, what are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm just an actor. I don't know. Fix it for me." So if you're that kind of person, I think you'll just kind of deal with it, pony up, you'll be fine with it. But again, if you're nickel and diming, you're going to maybe not move up there. And also, I think this is going to continue what we've talked about before. Do you choose to go to the theater or do you stay at home because you're paying such a premium for these different streaming services? So if you want all that HBO content and you want it in 4K, are you then also going to keep your unlimited movie subscription, or are you going to go to theaters in general? There's a lot to weigh there when it comes to cost for an average family.
All right, guys, with that down, let's move on to this, shall we? The other day, the first trailer for the upcoming Shogun series has arrived. Now, for those of you who might remember and have been around long enough, you remember about, I guess it's over 3 years ago, or right around 3 years ago now, Chris, when Disney had that big investor day call where they made all the announcements and everything. I remember they got to this section where they were talking about Hulu and effects, and they said, now it's time for another stories to be retold. Its time has come. And I'm like, what story is that? When an explorer loses their way, and I'm like, they're not talking about Shogun, are they? They're not about to do Shogun. If you guys watched me doing my live stream reaction with it, you guys remember, I'm like, they're not about to do, are they about to announce Shogun? And then they said Shogun, and I lost my mind. Shogun is something I've been waiting for almost my whole life. I've been waiting for them to bring this back. The James Clavell novel, even though I didn't understand half of it when I read it because I was so young, was one of the first books I got my hands on because my mom had it. So I read it. I loved it. They did the miniseries, which again was on when I was a child. And I remember loving the miniseries. And I've been just thinking for the longest time, modern storytelling techniques, this would be great. And the Shogun trailer finally dropped, and it looks glorious. This comes from the folks over at Effects who describe the project as this. Shogun follows the collision of two ambitious men from different worlds and a mysterious female samurai. John Blackthorne, a risk-taking English sailor who ends up shipwrecked in Japan, a land whose unfamiliar culture will ultimately redefine him, and Lord Toranaga, a shrewd, powerful man at odds with his own dangerous political rivals, and Lady Mariko, a woman whose invaluable skills but dishonorable family ties, who must prove her value and allegiance. And I am just telling you, for those of you who don't know anything about Shogun or the story or whatever, it's fantastic. The story is absolutely riveting. It's Game of Thrones before Game of Thrones. Actually, I'm almost positive Game of Thrones took a lot of influence probably from Shogun. At any rate, I think the modern age storytelling, the modern day technology, the modern day techniques will really contribute to it. And then that first trailer dropped. And Chris, I got to tell you, it was everything that I wanted it to be. The scope of it is vast. I know we overuse the word, but it's cinematic in feel. It's the presence of the characters are powerful, and it doesn't give away much. This is still off a little ways, but this is the first kind of look at it. As somebody who's been dying to watch this thing, I was personally thrilled. I don't remember in our conversations, Chris, if you've ever either read the book or saw the old miniseries or have any exposure to the old Shogun. What exposure have you had to it? And then what did you think about this trailer?
Honestly, mostly your enthusiasm, because so that meeting was around the time where you and I started first working together, because it was 2019 going into 2020.
Yeah.
So it was just, why are you so excited about this? The only thing I know about Shogun is that it's a really great restaurant. And so I had a very different idea of what this was. I'm so excited that I have so much homework on this show, right? I'm really excited to read the book. I'm excited to look back at the miniseries. And everything about this trailer has me so excited about this. I mean, I'm a huge Hiroyuki Sanada fan. Cosmo Jarvis, who's in this as well, I really enjoyed from Persuasion. I think he's a wonderful actor, and I'm really excited for him to get a very meaty role like this too. I mean, everything just looks so epic, so cool. It looks like it's going to have incredible fight scenes, but also be balanced with some real nuance and character-driven stuff. And that's when things really come together, right? You don't just have the flashy battles. You don't just have the wonderful period pieces and set design. You also have character-driven story and that whole hero's journey or the fish out of water story in a land where you feel so familiar and you feel so other is so intriguing to me. And I'm really excited to see it.
I'm glad you feel that way because I'm telling you, I am counting down the days to this, and I'm just really excited to finally see it coming to fruition. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to this, shall we? So Five Nights at Freddy's, of course, came out in theaters and had a monstrous opening weekend. It opened to $80 million, which may not sound to some people like a huge deal, considering, we've seen Spider-Man open to $200 million. Okay, yeah, but $80 million is a rare accomplishment for most films. And the fact that this came out and did that is super impressive. Even more impressive was the fact that it came out to an $80 million opening when it launched day and date also on Peacock. Now, that might be more of a testimony about how not that many people subscribe to Peacock, but guess what? The numbers just came out, and Peacock is now reporting that Five Nights at Freddy's is the most viewed piece of content they've ever had on the platform in its opening 5 days. This comes to us from the folks over at The Wrap, who wrote the following. Five Nights at Freddy's is Peacock's most watched film or television show within the first 5 days of availability, according to the streamer. The Blumhouse horror movie achievement came alongside a sky-high $80 million domestic and $133 million global opening over the weekend. The $20 million, only $20 million this thing cost to make, PG-13 adaptation of the popular video game series surpassed 5-day viewership totals of Halloween Ends and the Super Mario Brothers movie. Now, a couple of caveats to put in there. Halloween Ends also had that same day and date release strategy that Five Nights at Freddy's did. And the Super Mario Brothers. Now, maybe that one's catching you off guard. Like, wait a minute. It beat Super Mario Brothers? Yes, but you got to understand a couple things. Number one, it didn't arrive day and date like Five Nights at Freddy's did. Super Mario Brothers had a long, healthy theatrical run first. So a lot of people had already seen it. Then it was available on VOD, video on demand, where you can go on, Apple, and buy iTunes or Google Play Store and buy it for $19.99, whatever. So there was a period of time you could do that. And then eventually it landed on Peacock. Whereas Five Nights at Freddy's had the advantage of, hey, this is in theaters and our thing at the same day. Still, not to take anything away from it, that's really impressive. Like, that's very impressive what that thing was able to pull off, especially on a platform like Peacock. Now, again, the double-edged sword of this is that whether 1 million people watched it on Peacock or 10 million people watched it on Peacock, it makes Peacock no extra money. So, you got to take that into consideration. But, Chris, the very fact that it was able to have day and date, because here's another little bit of context to understand how impressive this is. There was another movie, high-profile movie, not that long ago, that also went day and date in theaters and on a streaming service at the same time and made the exact same amount of money in the movie theaters, opening weekend, $80 million. That was an MCU movie called Black Widow. So Five Nights at Freddy's has been able to launch in theaters and on streaming on the same day and make $80 million in the theaters on its opening weekend. That's equals what Black Widow did, which is pretty darn impressive. For a movie that quite honestly isn't even that good. Like, I don't think it's a bad movie. Don't misinterpret me. I do not think it's a bad movie. I mildly enjoyed myself, but it's not that good of a movie. But I think this speaks volumes about how popular this franchise was, that, as a friend of mine put it, people are hungry for a recognizable IP that isn't a third, fourth, or fifth installment in the franchise. I mean, as time continues here, Chris, we're just seeing more and more goals that this thing is hitting. What do you think about these numbers, the box office, Peacock streaming numbers, and what stands out as most impressive to you?
Oh man, dear internet friends, I have to eat crow first because I was like, this movie's gonna tank. Oh my gosh, day and date, what a bunch of bullshit. And it worked. It, for some reason, worked. And there's a couple different components here, right? First of all, it's a PG-13 horror movie. And that's a largely untapped audience, too, right? We usually go hard R on a lot of things. And this is also a horror movie that doesn't really lean into camp. It doesn't really lean into political or social commentary. It relies on nostalgia and recognizable IP. An IP that was almost completely fueled by reaction videos and watch-alongs and playthroughs, right? So they had a really smart kind of built-in system here too of working with streamers, working with gamers, and getting people to also talk about those reactions kind of the same way that they played these games. And I think that builds a lot in. People love these games. I told you when I went to the theater, there were all these little kids, and it was terrifying to me because it was like 8-year-olds dressed as the Five Nights characters and just so happy running around as maniacal little animatronics. People love this stuff. And so I think it's a formula that people are going to really try to chase after, and it feels very lightning in a bottle. It feels like this perfect storm of, okay, here's recognizable IP, here's a horror movie that all audiences, for the most part, depending on your parenting, can come see. And it's a nice, quick, kind of, for lack of a better term, and I know this sounds terrible, flash and trash. Hey, here's your movie, and it is what it is. We're not going to think deep about Five Nights at Freddy's. We're just going to watch this movie, take it for face value, and that's it, right? People love it, though. I mean, most people are giving it, like, really horrific reviews, and then audiences are just eating it up. It's another example of how a lot of times critics just don't have their finger on the pulse of what audiences want, particularly when it comes to video game audiences. There's a reason why that is the highest grossing type of entertainment these days. I mean, it's $1 billion industry, and that's why so many film companies, too, are trying to mine that content and trying to own that IP.
Now, I do want to throw a comment in here, though, about that, right? Mm-hmm. Because one of the difference when it comes to something as specific and niche as, say, Five Nights at Freddy's, you know, the audiences is not the wide audience, right? The audience is going to see Five Nights at Freddy's is an audience that's going and looking for a specific thing. Whereas like film critics, they're just going in and looking at it as any other movie and judging it on the basis of any other movie. Do you remember, I mean, it's a lot of years ago. Do you remember that BMX movie? There's this it was a wide release. This is like, I think when I was like either still in my teens or maybe I was 20, but this movie comes out, this BMX movie. I don't know if any of you guys in the live chat remember the name of it, but BMX movie comes out and it's awful. Right? It was totally awful. But what happened was that the audience reaction to it was higher than the critics because the critics went in to go see it and they just judged it and evaluated it as any other movie. Whereas it was a lot of BMX fans and a lot of BMX enthusiasts. Rad, thank you. Anthony Mendoza in the live chat. Rad. That was the name of the movie.
That came out in 1986. I wasn't an idea yet.
Oh, that wasn't. I was barely in my earliest
My parents
teens.
hadn't made an oopsie doodle yet.
But I just remember like a lot of people complain, well, critics don't know what they're talking. No, it's just that you went in looking for something. You didn't go into BMX looking for a quality feature film. You went in looking for specific things related to being a BMX enthusiast. Whereas I think sometimes with comic book movies, with nichings like something like Five Nights at Freddy's, I think, you know, you're going to get that differentiating thing where you're going to get audience members or critics who are going in and they're just looking at it as another movie. And, you know, we're looking for solid dialogue, deep characters, blah, blah, blah. And Five Nights at Freddy's does not deliver that. But it delivers the things that people who are Five Nights at Freddy's enthusiasts are looking for. So it's not that the audiences are wrong for having a great time. And it's not like some of the critics, and because some of the critics do like the movie, but it's not like some of the critics who don't like the movie are wrong either, because it's just, it depends on what you're going in there looking for. So
it goes all back to the subjectivity of everything, right? If you're a huge fan of this, you're probably going to like this movie if you like those games. And it's also why keeping your budget low is so important, so you can tailor to a specific audience and not worry about totally bankrupting yourself on an idea.
This thing's going to make around $200 million on a $20 million budget.
That's insane to me.
Like that's Taylor Swift Eras Tour kind of ratio.
I mean, percentage-wise, yes.
Yeah. So everybody's going to be desperately looking for what's the next thing that we can make for $12 million that hopefully makes 150. Like it's impressive what they were able to pull off. All right, guys, listen. we still have to talk about a couple more things. The Last of Us Season 2, they've announced now when they're going to go into production on that and when we can expect it to finally hit Max. Also, the new Echo trailer has arrived with a few very interesting bits of information about it, like the rating and how they're releasing it. We're going to talk about that and a few things more. But before we do, we're going to take a quick second here and thank a couple of sponsors of today's episode of the John Campea Show podcast. Our friends at Marine Lair and the makers of the most comfortable shoes I've ever owned, Vessi. Guys, we want to take a second to thank a sponsor of today's video, Marine Lair. It's official, guys. I have found the softest t-shirt of all time, so soft, it's ridiculous. All thanks to the San Francisco-based Marine Lair. Marine Lair is the go-to brand for great-fitting and stylish closet staples. Their clothes are that perfect mix of laid-back style and also looks and feels premium. It's time to invest in a wardrobe that will actually last. For a limited time, the John Campea Show viewers and listeners get an exclusive 15% off with the code Campea15 at marinelair.com. Now, guys, you know I am not the most fashionable guy in the world, but I appreciate a good looking shirt, but more importantly, I appreciate a comfortable shirt. And the shirts that I've got from Marine Lair fit both of those beautifully. And they've even got sizes like Marge, which is in between medium and large, so everyone can get their perfect fit. The best part, if you buy any 3 tees from Marine Lair, you automatically get 20% off. And Marine Lair goes way beyond just t-shirts too. They've got super laid back overshirts, pants, jackets, and all the cozy layers you want for the cooler seasons. I think we can all admit that the perfect tee can be hard to find. Look no further than Marine Lair. For a limited time, get 15% off with the code Campea15 at marinelair.com. That's Campea15 for 15% off your entire order at marinelair.com. Saving your closet one shirt at a time. Guys, we want to take a second to thank a sponsor of this video, Vessi. Now, you guys know I'm not exactly the most fashion conscious guy in the world, but I love a great pair of shoes that are comfortable and I can wear almost anywhere. And growing up in Canadian winters when my feet got wet a lot, waterproof would be nice too. Enter Vessi. They make the claim that they're not just fashionable and super comfortable, they're also waterproof. Now, you guys remember, when I got my first pair of Vessis, I put them to the ultimate waterproof test. I actually stuck my foot in my pool, my feet stayed dry, and the shoes stayed dry. Incredible. And they're the most comfortable pair of shoes I ever owned. Well, that made me want another pair. So I got another pair of Vessis that look great and just equal that world-class comfort that I got from that first pair of shoes. They are absolutely my favorite shoes that I've ever owned. Imagine your favorite sneaker style supercharged with waterproof technology and unmatched comfort. No matter how you like to stay active, Vessi has the shoes for you. Trail-ready high tops, effortless slip-ons, and classic court shoes, all with a waterproof twist. They are just as comfortable and stylish as your favorite sneakers, but even more versatile. So guys, if you're anything like me and you want the most comfortable pair of shoes that look great, that you can take out hiking, wear to work, go to the gym, or walk through the water and snow, go to vessi.com/Campea and get yourself a pair today. Go to vessi.com/Campea and get 15% off your order using the code Campea. And thank you to our friends at Marine Lair and Vessi for sponsoring this episode. All right, guys, with that down, let's move on to this, shall we? Last of Us came into, the pop cultural consciousness with 2 of the greatest video games ever made, certainly the 2 greatest stories in video games ever told. And then it became a television series. And a lot of people thought, wait a minute, they're actually making that into a series? What? Could this be the game that breaks the curse of video game on the screen stuff sucking? Maybe. Well, it came out and it blew everybody away. It's, I think, maybe the best thing currently in between seasons on television right now. I think it's even better than House of the Dragon. I just love the show. It takes you through all the different emotions, the crying, the cheering, the laughing, incredible performances up and down. I could just wax poetic about Last of Us all day. But the question has been, when are we going to get season 2? Well, now it looks like we may be starting to get some answers. This comes to us from the folks over at Screen Rant who wrote the following. HBO's The Last of Us Season 2 receives a tentative filming start date as the next chapter of the PlayStation video game adaptations is expected to start filming in early of 2024. The hit show starred Pedro Pascal as smuggler Joel Miller, who is hired to escort Bella Ramsey's Ellie Williams across a North America ravaged by a deadly fungal virus that turns victims into monstrous beings. The Last of Us Season 2 will pick up after Season 1, adapting the events of the 2020 video game sequel, The Last of Us Part 2. A couple of interesting things about that is, from what we understand and from what I've heard in interviews, it sounds like they're breaking up the second game into 2 seasons. So from what I understand, like season 2 will be the first part of Last of Us 2, the video game, and then season 3 would be the second part of the Last of Us 2 video game. How true that is, we'll find out soon. Look, number one, I'm very excited to hear that they've got plans to start rolling on this in what they're calling early 2024. That means they could be getting cameras rolling in as little as 2 to 3 months, which is great. We heard the showrunner say recently that they pretty much have everything ready to go as soon as the actor strike is over. So whenever the actor strike is over, hopefully they'll be able to get everything ramped up and ready to go for an early 2024 thing. Now, for those of you who might be like me and might be thinking, ooh, if they shoot in early 2024, maybe there's a possibility we could get The Last of Us Season 2 in 2024. Unfortunately, no. The CEO of HBO shot that down immediately, says they're looking at it being a 2025 release. And Chris, I mean, again, that hurts my heart a little bit. Like, I don't know why. I still don't know why. That just a few years ago, every television show had like 20 episodes a season, and they were able to have new seasons every year like clockwork, ready to go. Why today these streaming shows can have like 3 episodes or 5 episodes or 10 episodes, and they need like 2.5 years to get everything running. Granted, in this particular situation, we've had a couple of strikes. That has definitely affected things. But I still remember before the strikes, you know, HBO saying, probably looking at having Last of Us in 2025. It's like, what? Really? But I guess me being upset about that is just kind of also a testament to how much I love the show.
Yeah.
Because if it was another season of a show I didn't care about, I'd be like, okay, whatever, it comes out in 2025. I just want this thing back, but at least it's going to be going back in front of the cameras. What do you think about these announcements that it sounds like hopefully in the next couple of months they're going to be shooting? We still have to wait till 2025. And where's your anticipation level like right now for The Last of Us Season 2?
Oh man, I want it, but I don't, because I know what happens, right? At least some of it. I know some things, and they make me very sad. We also have to take into consideration when it comes to these streaming shows, not only have we had several strikes, changes in writer room sizes, all those kinds of things. Also, for COVID protocols was a big thing for that first season too, slowing things down. And some of those have remained in place too, just for the safety of everyone on set. But I am ravenous for this content, right? I love this show. Again, a wonderful example of this IP being mined correctly, because they stuck exactly to the formula for what they needed to, and then they made changes where it did work more for this particular medium. One of the problems with a lot of video game adaptations is trying to either completely regurgitate it. We see it with comic book movies too, right? Watchmen was almost panel for panel in some moments, and that didn't always translate for movie-going audiences. And Last of Us did a really great job of, okay, how can we create that same sense of agency you feel with Sarah without you actually playing as her?
Right.
Okay, how can we have you experience this? How can we make this feel more relatable to the world you currently live in? And they just really executed everything so well. Plus the acting in that show. I mean, come on. Pedro and Bella's chemistry is so good. It's so good. I'm bummed that we're not getting it for a while, but it's one of those things too where I don't want them to rush excellence. And that first season was so great that if they need to take their time, especially in light of everything that's been happening, I want those same really solid scripts, those beautiful nuanced moments, and still the creepy crawlerness of the clickers.
You know, it was one of those rare examples of a show that was able to work as a drama. It was able to work at times as a horror. And like, I always talk about how movies, and to a degree also television, they're meant to be experiential events, giving us emotional experiences. And every episode that I've watched of Last of Us, I walked away with a definitive emotional experience. I mean, all you got to do in our culture, and what other show can you do this with, is just say to somebody, episode 3. And people just know what you're talking about. All you got to say is episode 3. Ann and I went to go see Nick Offerman do a one-man show a couple of months ago. And one of the things he talked about on stage was saying, you know, it's really funny. I've never had, he goes, in all the years that I played Ron Swanson and all that kind of stuff, I've never had somebody just come up to me and just say, episode 3, or like just say the number of an episode. And he said, everybody just knows what that is now. And again, one of the most powerful, gut wrenching, emotionally moving episodes of television I've ever seen.
And what a way to take what was in the video game and elevate it.
Yes.
That story is wildly different in the games, and it's heartbreaking in a different way, where it's just, this gave you a, hey, there's a reason you should fight for this world still.
Yeah.
Because love is still in it. And, oh, it's so beautiful. Oh my gosh, when they're eating their strawberries. Oh God.
Oh my God, when they're eating their strawberries.
I love them.
All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to this, shall we? You know, one of the worst launches of a character the MCU has ever had was the character of Echo in the Hawkeye series. Because I went into the Hawkeye series thinking, well, Echo in the comics is kind of an interesting character. Let's see what it is. And I came away from Hawkeye caring less about Echo than I did before Hawkeye started. It was a terrible introduction. And so and don't lie, I know many of you have been completely indifferent to this coming Echo show. I'll say it. I didn't care. Don't care about this Echo show, because what they did with Echo in the Hawkeye series made me not care. So it was with a little bit of a surprise, because I even thought there was still a chance, even though I know they already shot the show, I thought there was a chance they would never air it. I think I even said that on the show. I thought there was honestly a chance they wouldn't even air their show. Well, yesterday we found out that today they were going to be dropping the first trailer for Echo. And it changed everything. Before I say why, let's go over to this. This comes to us from Variety, who wrote the following, who said this. The Marvel series Echo, which debuted its inaugural trailer on Friday and premieres on January 10th, contains several firsts for the company. It's the first Marvel Studios production that will debut on Disney Plus and Hulu. The first that will have every episode available to binge at once. That's actually a little bit of a red flag to me. But and the first that will be rated TVMA. Okay, a whole bunch to unpack here. Let's start just with the trailer itself, okay? The trailer itself is spectacular. I say this as a person who couldn't give 2 squirts of urine about this character they introduced us to in Hawkeye. And I watched this trailer going, yeah, let's see how bad. This was me. I'm admitting it. Let's see how bad this thing's going to be. It's probably going to be pretty bad. And I played it and I'm like, what the hell? Like that whole thing about like even Kingpin, like seeing a guy kind of mocking her and then he beats the living shit out of him for it. I mean, like just a narrative. I'm not talking like any trailer. Any trailer can take a rapid succession of images and punches and gunshots and swords. Any trailer can do that, right? This trailer was a self-contained little story. They told this little story through the trailer from when Echo's a little girl came in, and then it ends perfectly. It starts with Kingpin taking her hand and walking her away, and it ends with Kingpin face to face with her with, you don't see many bullet eye wounds, but still Kingpin is sitting there with a bullet eye wound patched up and says, you're the monster, or something along those lines, right? I got to tell you this, Chris, and I mean this wholeheartedly, and I don't mean this facetiously. This trailer convinced me more than ever that putting her in the Hawkeye series was a mistake. This trailer should have been our first exposure to this character. Because if this trailer had been our first exposure to the character, everybody would be losing their minds for this series right now. And I think this trailer has won a lot of people over, but I think for a lot of people, including me, there's still a little bit of reservation because they introduced us to this, quite frankly, what should be a very interesting character. And they somehow took this, what should be a very interesting character, and made her pretty uninteresting. I don't know how they accomplished that in Hawkeye. But yeah, I always felt she shouldn't have been in Hawkeye. I am now 100% convinced she shouldn't have been in Hawkeye. This should have been our first introduction to us. It felt like the Netflix series or like a Netflix series in many ways. It just completely overwhelmed me for how surprised. I'm not saying it's the greatest trailer we've seen for a television show ever. I'm just saying from where my expectations were to what it delivered, it was a great trailer. And look, with all this hooping and hollering I'm doing, this could still suck. I mean, let's not pretend like we haven't heard some concerning things coming out of the production of it. The fact that they are dropping it all at once, which is not something that Disney normally does. You could make an argument that maybe they're just wanting to experiment, like because Disney has never dropped all the episodes at once. Maybe they decided this is a good show to experiment with that with. I could see that, but I don't think that's what's happening. I think this is a little bit of a red flag because I don't think they believe that this show is going to be super good, that people will talk about it in between episodes and that the audience would build and build and build. But again, that's not a definitive thing. That's just a red flag to me, a little bit worried about. The other interesting thing here, Chris, is that they've revealed that this thing will be TVMA. Now, I found that very interesting because Kevin Feige has been very explicit. He said, we are not doing R-rated stuff. Except for Deadpool, that's it. Only Deadpool. Blade's not going to be R-rated, all that kind of stuff. Now, I talked to a friend of mine this morning when I read this. I said, well, TVMA is basically the television equivalent of R-rated. And then what my friend pointed out to me this morning is a good point. He goes, yes, TVMA is television's kind of version of R-rated. But that doesn't mean if you took it from TV and put it in a movie theater that it would necessarily get an R rating. There's a lot of stuff in movie theaters that sometimes get a PG-13, like a hard PG-13, that if they put that on television could get a TVMA rating. I'm like, oh, okay, a little bit of semantics, but I'll accept that for now. Anyway, Chris, I'm shocked. I am agog and aghast. Of how good this trailer looks. Again, it's probably just a bait and switch. It's probably going to be a terrible show. I don't know.
No,
but
it could be good.
I am suddenly interested in watching this show, and 5 hours ago, I was not, and now I am. You saw the trailer. First of all, a lot of stuff to break down here. Number one, what did you think of the trailer? What do you think of their strategy to do it, dropping the entire series at once? By the way, only 5 episodes. So in case I'm not normally already pissed off about the stupid 6 episode thing they do. Yeah. Oh yeah, you don't like 6, Campea? How about 5? You like that? And the fact that it's going to be TVMA. Lot to break down here. What did you think?
Yeah. Okay, first of all, honestly, I thought I was going to be coming in here defending this trailer and being like, see how good this looks, Campea? See? Because this was a point of contention for us. If I was like, I think Echo's a really interesting character. Sure, I think Hawkeye made a lot of missteps because that show just, I think, chose so many of the wrong paths and so much of the wrong execution there. Because again, Clint's such an interesting character too. We're finally exploring him as a deaf character as well. And we'd really just instead are kind of all over the place. We gloss over Ronan. We made it more Christmassy, which should be my thing. And it still didn't work for me. That all aside, I was blown away by this trailer because my expectations for this really were starting to dwindle because I felt like the little engineer that could whenever we were in the studio of like, but it'll probably be good, but maybe it'll be good. Okay, I keep hearing problems. Okay, all my insiders are telling me this. Oh, this is happening right now. Oh gosh, production is just a mess. So to see this trailer come to fruition this way is lovely. I had no idea it was going to be this violent. None whatsoever. That first kind of under the jaw shot on Disney?
Yeah.
On Disney? And I mean, it makes me rethink everything I've said about some of the other shows too of, oh, we're not going to have a Punisher because how do you do that show? Apparently like this. I love the parallels already between Kingpin and Maya. I love, love, love that you immediately think kind of too, well, Kingpin shouldn't have done that, but that guy was an asshole. Who makes fun of a kid?
A deaf kid.
Let alone a deaf kid. What a monster. So you see that kind of avuncular love, right? And sure, it is wildly misplaced and it is too violent, but you understand that they do have this connection. And that's going to be something that really is going to be just eating at her throughout this because of what she knows about him now. The styles throughout the trailer, too, look really interesting. Not only do we have some really crazy kind of John Wick-esque fight choreography, but there were also those cut twos of black and white, different kind of camera tilts and things happening, too.
Stylistically, it was really, really well done. Yeah.
And that's one of the things we've talked about with Disney, too, of take some chances, do some things. We've had so much formulaic superhero stuff. Comic books, one of the best things about them is that they were always willing to risk, right? All the real good stuff that we first got would try different genres or try different angles on things. And I love to see that here. The dropping of 5 episodes. My only hope here is that because it's just 5, this is more like an incredibly long movie,
Right.
but I'm hoping we keep that breakneck pace that makes you go, God, I have to binge watch another episode. I need to watch this right now. Do I fully believe that's the case? Not necessarily. But that's the story I'm going to tell myself while I await this show so I can continue feeling this good about Disney. Because I think it's such a good character, and I think there are some really cool things to explore here. And again, that chosen family, that found family dynamic falling apart, I think is something just really, really ripe for some really good storytelling. And I hope they stick the landing on this, because to your point, we've seen so many good trailers. That's the point of a trailer.
Yeah.
No one makes a dog shit one.
Secret Invasion trailer was great.
The Secret Invasion, that show hurts my soul so much, especially because it was still so well acted for the most part too, where you're like, you guys, you tried so hard. So I'm really hoping Disney just gets it together. If it's anything like Loki, right? I know apples and oranges in terms of narrative, but if it's anything like the execution we've been seeing of that show and that season 2 in particular, I'm really, really hopeful for this.
By the way, last night's episode of Loki, probably my least favorite so far.
It was very time travel-y.
Yeah, well, not only was it time traveling, which is fine because that's part of what this world is. It was like it felt like Ray and I were talking about. It felt like the whole episode is something that should have happened in part of an episode, and they took something that should have been in the first act of an episode and stretched it out across the time. But anyway, we're not here to talk about that. Look, all I know is it has been a while since I have had a trailer, and it does happen every once in a while, but a trailer really change my entire perspective of a project. Because like I said, when I woke up, when that alarm clock went off this morning and I woke up, I was an individual of who gives a shit about this Echo show. And now I sit here, somebody goes, I want to see this Echo show. That trailer,
it is I give all the shits.
Oh my God, the trailer's so good. Again, listen, and for anybody saying, well, Campea, don't get too ahead of yourself. I know. The series may suck. It may totally be the worst piece of garbage that I've been expecting it to be this whole time. But call it like you see it and give credit where it's due. This trailer, as much as I've been talking shit on the potential of this series, this trailer looks fantastic. And it really, maybe this opens new doors. Who knows? Anyway, guys, with that down, we are now going to go over and start taking your comments and questions. I know a bunch of you, I've already seen a bunch of you writing and wanting to talk about this Echo trailer. The super chats are still open, but I will be closing them fairly soon. But before we get to those, guys, we're going to take a second and thank a couple of more sponsors of today's episode of the John Campea Show podcast, our friends at Mint Mobile, and the providers of the most enjoyable teeth brushing experiences of my life, the good folks over at Quip. Guys, we want to take a second to thank a sponsor of today's video, Mint Mobile. Signing your life away to a big wireless provider is kind of like being trapped on a roller coaster from hell. Sure, it looks like fun at first. They probably even threw in a free phone, but now you can't get off. Month after month of insane bills and unexpected thrills, like overages and surprise fees. If that sounds like your current big wireless plan, it's time to get off the ride with Mint Mobile. For a limited time, wireless plans from Mint Mobile are just $15 a month. That's unlimited talk, text, and data for just $15 a month. You guys know before I came to Mint Mobile, I was paying triple what I am paying now on the standard big wireless plan, and I will never go back. All plans come with unlimited talk, text, and high-speed data delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number along with all your existing contacts. To get your new unlimited wireless plan for just $15 a month and get the plan shipped right to your door for free, go to mintmobile.com/Campea. That's mintmobile.com/Campea. Cut your wireless bill to just $15 a month at mintmobile.com/Campea. Guys, we want to take a second to thank a sponsor of this video, Quip. Guys, you know that good health starts with good habits, and Quip makes it easy by delivering all the oral care essentials that you need to care for your mouth. For example, their incredible electric toothbrush. Guys, I've been using electric toothbrushes for years, and this is easily the best one I've ever owned. Timed sonic vibrations with 30-second pulses to guide a dentist-recommended 2-minute clean. A lightweight and sleek design for adults and kids with no wires or bulky charger to weigh you down. Reusable handles in a range of sleek metal hues, as well as bright plastic colors, sure to make a pop on your bathroom counter. Skip the batteries and snap into healthy habits with the new rechargeable electric toothbrush. All the features of the original Quip, plus one magnetic charge, powers up to 3 months of brushing. In addition to brush heads, Quip also delivers fresh floss, toothpaste, mouthwash, and gum refills every 3 months from just $7. So if you go to getquip.com/Campea right now, you'll get 20% off any electric toothbrush, mint and gum dispenser, or water flosser. That's your 20% off any electric toothbrush, mint and gum dispenser, water flosser at getquip.com/Campea. That's GETQUIP.com/Campea. Quip, the good habits company. And thank you to our friends at Mint Mobile and Quip for sponsoring today's episode of the John Campea Show podcast. All right, guys, and Chris, with that down, we're now going to move over and start taking the live questions you guys have been sending in. Just so you know, I have turned off the super chats now, so you can't send in any more super chats. We've got a lot of them that have come in already, so let's get over and get to them. We're going to start off here with Joshua McGregor, who writes, so I guess Disney is leaning into more mature content besides Deadpool. This change of direction is so smart, and all I have to do is press a button to switch over, bring on the filthy. I don't think that's true, Joshua. Like I was saying a little bit earlier, when I was talking to somebody, it's like, understand that TVMA is kind of television's equivalent of R, but that doesn't mean if you took it and put it on a movie screen that it wouldn't still get a PG-13. I'm guessing it would still be, like when we watch it, it'll be a PG-13 movie, but probably a harder, edgier PG-13 movie. I don't know that this necessarily signals any kind of change of direction for Disney at this point, but I gotta tell you, I really did like what I saw, man. I liked what I saw a lot. All right, next up, we got Gus's gas station movie reviews.fart. Right, so I was like, let me just see if I can center this up a bit more. There we go. Do not walk, let me try this again. Do not walk, run to Netflix's new Blue-Eyed Samurai, animation on par with Arcane, set in samurai-era Japan as a young Euro-Japanese swordsman hunts down the white man who R-worded their mother. Ooh, brutal, beautiful, and bloody. Chris, the classic martial arts movie is usually about vengeance and revenge. Are you familiar with this Blue-Eyed Samurai? Heck, I should ask, do you do a voice in Blue-Eyed Samurai?
I wish. No, I'm not familiar with this. I need to catch up on my anime. We just started watching Captain Laserhawk, which is wildly fun. Highly recommend that, but I will definitely add that to the queue because that sounds very, very intense.
And by the way, Gus's gas station movie stuff art put in a $20 super chat. Thank you so much, man, for supporting us on that level, Gus. We appreciate that, man. All right, next up, another $20 super chat from our friend James Wheeler, who writes, hello, everyone. I'm sorry about your Leafs loss last night. That's all right. But my Bruins are looking pretty impressive. The Bruins have looked really impressive like every year for the past 5 years. And it was a great game. It's still early. The Leafs are looking great. The Bruins look great. So no problem. It's going to be a great season for both teams, I'm pretty sure. And thank you again, James, for supporting us on that level, man. Really appreciate that. Next up, Zeus Fleming writes, that looks like Netflix produced it. I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm going to assume here, Chris, that he's talking about Echo. And that's one of the things that I mentioned in my take on is that it feels like, Chris, if you told me, by the way, overnight, Netflix got the rights to all these shows again, and they produced this thing, I would believe it because it really did look like one of those Defenders, Echo, Jessica Jones style show. Did you recognize that too?
Oh, absolutely. I immediately was like, oh, this feels like a continuation of Netflix's Daredevil. It feels like that Kingpin, right? It feels like having the Foot Clan and stuff like that coming, or the Hand, the Hand. The Foot is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It's very different. But yeah, it feels like a continuation.
Next up, we've got Zeus Fleming who writes, oh no, that was Zeus Fleming. Mauricio writes, are you going to review Loki Season 2 and Gen V Season 1? I will probably do next Friday an overall Loki Season 2 review. Probably will. Probably won't do one for Gen V, even though I think that's the better show. I've really liked Loki. Last night was a bridge episode, whatever. Overall, I have really enjoyed Loki Season 2, but Gen V is next level, and they had their finale yesterday, and it was fabulous. And somebody asked me, do you think maybe like a Homelander could show up? And I said, nah, Homelander's not going to show up. Anyway, the series was fabulous. It set me up. Can't wait for the next season. Can't wait for the next season of The Boys. I loved it, but not going to do an overall review of it, but I probably will for Loki Season 2 next week. All right. Next up, Amin writes, happy Dune Part 2 release date. That's right. November 3rd. Today was supposed to be the day that Dune 2 was going to come out. Anyway, cannot wait to finally watch this. Feels like we've been waiting forever. Seeing it in IMAX tonight. ... Oh, wait. ... Yeah. Yeah, of course, they made the decision. Understandably, they made the decision to delay the film into 2024 because they've got like 10 A-list actors in that movie, and they can't have any of them out promoting the film. So that's ultimately why they moved it from November into 2024. But hey, I cannot wait to see this movie, man. Cannot wait to watch it. All right, next up, Sam Fisher writes, the Echo trailer is fantastic. Really reminds me of Netflix. A lot of people are saying that. I'm going to be really mad if Echo is the best Disney Plus series Marvel made. I don't understand. Why? Right?
Why don't you want nice things, Sam?
Yeah, I mean, look, Rob and I talk about this all the time. I will never understand, like, everything I go into, I hope is the best thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously it never is, but I mean, like, why would you be mad? Like, if they were to give us a show that is on par with or better than WandaVision, is that not a good thing? Is that not an amazing thing? Look, I feel very safe in telling you, don't worry about it. It ain't going to be better than WandaVision. But I at least have a feeling it could be better than I was expecting. I don't know. Like, it does look different, Chris. Do you think this could challenge to be Marvel's best series on Disney Plus so far?
You know, anything is possible. WandaVision is so great. And it does a little bit of what we talked about with that Echo trailer, though, of playing with styles, right? Because that was so intrinsically tied to the narrative of WandaVision. There's room for something to be better than that. I just haven't seen it yet.
I agree. All right. Next up, we are going over to Dildar the Glorious, who writes, oh my God, I am shocked by how good Echo looks. This makes me more hopeful than Daredevil. That Daredevil could also be TVMA. This could be a new era of MCU TV if successful. Maybe yes, maybe no. But I will say this, that this trailer for Echo does make me very curious to see what they ultimately end up doing with Daredevil. Now, as we all know, Daredevil, they just scrapped everything, almost everything they had shot. They went back to the drawing board, starting from square one. Although they did bring in one of the executive producers of the Netflix Punisher series is now going to be the showrunner of Daredevil, and maybe we're going to see some similarities there. So fingers crossed. But all I know is that this trailer for Echo is way better than it has any business being, because this was a fabulous trailer. All right. Next up, Mr. Hank Dunn writes, I screamed in celebration when I saw TVMA. I know a show doesn't need it to be good, but there are so many Marvel characters that should be. I'm excited. I honestly, Chris, and I know a lot of people disagree with me on this, and that's fine. It's lonely being right. TVMA is not going to make anything better. It's not going to make anything worse. But I've seen, how much content have we seen that has had real mature stuff in it, and it just sucks. It's all about, listen, if the story's bad, being TVMA is not going to make this thing any better. If the characters are one-dimensional, making it TVMA isn't going to make it any better. If you see brain matter splurting out of a guy's head, that's not going to suddenly make a bad show a good show. It doesn't give me, I find it interesting, but it never makes me happy or sad to see it. The only time I felt that way was when they did Daredevil, or not Daredevil, Deadpool. When they announced, because I always said, look, you can do Deadpool PG-13. You can. It'll be fine if they do it PG-13. But when they said it was going to be R, it's like, okay, yes, because this is the character. He's so foul-mouthed. He's so filthy. It's not just about the violence and everything. He is the merc with a mouth, right?
Yeah.
So it's not, the TVMA rating on this has not made me any more excited for it, because I think this trailer, if this thing said PG, like TV, PG, or whatever the ratings are for TV, I don't know what it is. But if it just said TV regular, it would not have taken away any of my enthusiasm for what I saw in this trailer. Do you think the TVMA thing is going to have a big impact on this show? Or do you think Disney just said, you know what, all these fanboys are saying they want it more violent, so let's just put the TVMA rating on it, because it doesn't make any difference, unlike the movie theaters. What do you think?
I mean, can't it be both? Can't it be both to get that viewership for episode 1 up at least, right? So they'll give it the good old college try. I will say there's certain characters who we expect and associate brutality with. You know, a Punisher, post Netflix Daredevil, things like that. We expect some grittiness. But one of the things I always like to bring up with Daredevil is one of the most effective scenes in that entire show was Kingpin just wailing on that guy. And you don't see what he's doing. You just see the blood on Kingpin.
Yeah.
And that is not something that would get an R rating, you know, but your mind does so much more because you're inferring what's happening there. So you can get around all these things without having to have that actual hard R on there. But I think it is going to entice people for a character who's not as widely known for them to tune in.
Yeah, it gives it something distinctive about it from the other stuff we've had. Yeah, that's true. All right. AJC writes, Pedro Pascal is Ramirez in the new Highlander movie. He is very popular and has that Game of Thrones background. You know what? I should not tell you this. But I will. Ramirez is not going to be Pedro Pascal. Because there are certain people who know how passionate I am about the Highlander, they decided to let me know who's going to be Ramirez. I know who's going to be Ramirez.
It's good.
But I should not have told Chris, but I did. So Chris will never. Chris will never reveal. Chris will never reveal who it is.
I haven't even told Logan.
Good. Please keep it that way.
Yeah.
And all I'm going to say is, I'm very excited. So I'm just gonna leave it at that. I may also know who's playing Kurgan, but I'm very excited. But hey, listen, in a vacuum, Pedro Pascal would have been a great, Darren L in the live chat saying, is it Ezra Miller? Yes.
Nailed it.
Got it. You nailed it. You got Ezra Miller to play him. All right.
That's why I'm so excited.
So excited. All right. Next up, we've got Guillaume Labelle, who writes, Echo trailer looks so good. My interest, I should say, went from goose egg to 100 in an instant. Might be terrible, but the trailer made me really excited. Did you guys spot Daredevil? If you blink, you'll miss him. I don't think Daredevil was in it.
I don't remember seeing him, but I do want to watch this in slow-mo and try to find as many Easter eggs. Yeah.
I don't think he was in it. And you know what? He shouldn't be in it. Because, I mean, all of us have heard that, first of all, we've heard that Daredevil will be in the series. But the other thing we've all heard is that it's going to be a small part, right? It's like he's not a major character in the series. That's what all of us have heard at any rate. And if that's the case, I would prefer them, if it really is more about Echo and Kingpin, let the trailer focus on them. Let Matt pop up in another second or a third trailer, whatever. I just don't want, because I think they know if they had Daredevil popping up in, the trailer, right? People are going to be under the impression that it's a Echo with Daredevil and Kingpin show. And I don't think that's what it is. So I think it's probably a good idea that they didn't put him in there, but we'll find out.
The chat's saying they think it's a 2-second flippy moment.
Well, maybe. I'll have to go through frame by frame and take a look at it. All right. Thank you for that, Guillaume. Next up, we got Nat Reeds, who writes, I've been assembling a small digital movie collection for myself. What do you guys think about buying a movie on digital, pros or cons? I have been a digital movie buyer for a decade now. Yeah, I weaned myself off of physical media probably 10 years ago. The advantages are just so huge. There's just so many advantages to being digital. Now, the argument, it always comes up, people will say, well, at any time they could take your movie away. I've got hundreds of movies that I've been collecting for 10 years. I've never had one thing disappear. I can't lose it. I can pull out my phone. I can, pull out my phone and start watching it. Anything I got, anywhere I am in the world, I can start watching my movie collection right there instead of it sitting at a shelf, taking up space. And here's the other thing. I remember I was talking to Rob about this too, because this is true. Anybody with a DVD collection, every year you will lose a couple, either through damage, somebody borrowing them that you forgot about, misplacing them during a move. They're still in a box somewhere that you forgot is there. But it happens all the time. And I remember I was talking to Rob and I brought this up on the show because Rob said, that doesn't really happen that often. I'm like, Rob, just last week you were complaining to me that you lost a 5-disc set of something because you can't find it now. And he's like, well, that is true. So it's like, and if you had it on digital, it would still be there. Yeah, I am all for it. No, look, I'm not saying, Chris, that I don't recognize the advantages of physical media. There are advantages to physical media. 100% there are. I'm just saying, for me, the advantages of owning digital have far outweighed any advantages that there are to having physical. Because in the past 10 years, I've moved a minimum of 4 times. Do you know how much headache I've saved myself from not having a 1,000-disc collection to up and move along with me and risk losing them and all that kind of stuff? No, they're all right here. I can buy them in an instant. I can watch them anywhere I am. They don't take up any space. And all these doom naysayers about how, you don't understand, they're going to take away your movies. I've never had it happen once in 10 years. I don't know. Now, are you?
I have had it happen. I have had.
You have. What have you had go missing?
We had bought stuff, but it was through YouTube as well.
Oh, okay.
And so some of those went away, but I paid maybe like $5 or $6 for it. Sucks, but I'll buy it again, right? Oh no, skip a latte or something like that. People get really frustrated in my house because we have some of our favorite, Blu-rays, DVDs, that sort of thing, still in their like very fancy cases, right? My Lord of the Rings special editions, things like that. Our other discs that we didn't purge are in a 90s-esque CD sleeve box.
A lot of people do that.
And that's what I have for that, because I have so many Christmas movies and things. And so I have all of those in there, and people be like, this is disgusting. How dare you do this to your media? But when I've had to move, I just pick up one binder and I'm done.
And honestly, look, debate me on this if you want in the live chat, guys, but I think this is true. And I think a lot of you might admit it. I'd say at least 20% of the people, 1 out of every 5, simply collects physical media because they like the way it looks in shelves in their rooms. I honestly, I think that people like having the big shelves showing off the display of DVDs they haven't touched in years, but is sitting there. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not poo-pooing on that. Nothing wrong with that. I just think I think there's a good number of people that just like to have it for home decoration than anything else. And you know what? I agree. Would I like to have a big, like huge cases behind me filled with them? Yeah, it would look pretty cool. But anyway.
Yeah.
All right. Let's keep moving on here. Next up, we have James Germain, who writes, hey, John, surprised you guys haven't talked about Ryan Gosling's Fall Guy. Keep up the filthy. You know what? I did talk about it on Open Mic yesterday. Here's the problem. I like to keep the show to 4 or 5 topics. Yesterday, we were at 7 topics. And I just didn't have room to put in Fall Guy. So it's either we could have talked about the Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes trailer, or we could have talked about the Fall Guy trailer. I had to pick one because we already had way too many topics. So I picked the Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes trailer. But anyway, yeah, what I said on Open Mic yesterday was very happy with the Fall Guy trailer. Good Canadian kid, Ryan Gosling, Aaron Taylor Johnson, Emily Blunt. It looks really good. And I think the song choice in the trailer with the old Bon Jovi tune, I thought that was a great choice. Yeah. And, you know, I had never even heard of this movie until they showed us a presentation for it at CinemaCon back in April. And I remember this saying, this looks pretty good. And I thought the trailer was pretty solid. Yeah, I thought it looked pretty good. All right. Next up, we got Zelda Master 702 who writes, the issue I have with the Mac situation is that I have my service through my TV provider and I have no option to upgrade even if I want to. But that's not necessarily true, Zelda Master, because you do have options, right? You could probably cancel that through your TV provider and then subscribe to the service separately. So the option, it may not be an optimal option, but the option is there for you if you wanted to do it that way. All right.
You can call your TV provider too. I know that that's annoying, but sometimes you can say you want that upgrade through them and they should make that happen for you.
That's actually very good. Yeah, it's like if you can't find any material on it, do what Chris just said. Just give them a call and see what they're able to do for you. Say, you know, it'd be a shame if I have to cancel my subscription, just go to streaming. They might probably work something out for you. Yeah. All right. Next up, Corey M. writes, very surprised by how good that Echo trailer was and its TVMA rating. The Hollywood Reporter described footage that was screened to press as having hints of Daredevil, John Wick, and Breaking Bad. Sounds good to me. Oh, listen, Corey, again, there is no doubt whatsoever that what we are seeing in this trailer looks and sounds fantastic. But, and I'm not trying to rain on anybody's parade, okay? I just want to say, as fans, we've all seen it a million times. We've seen lots of great trailers to horrible movies. We've seen lots of great previews to what turned out to be bad TV shows. We've seen it happen with Disney Plus itself. So while I have completely, what was I going to say, realigned my entire perspective of this show as a result of this trailer, I'm not going to get too far ahead of myself outside of the trailer and now suddenly think this show's going to be the best thing ever. Why? Because the trailer was awesome. Well, we've had that experience. So I am trying to limit my really huge enthusiasm just to the trailer, but I'd be lying to you if I didn't tell you I'm now definitely more interested in the show than I was before. So here's hoping that this show can live up to that trailer, because if it does, we're in for a freaking treat, Corey. All right. Next up, we got Ismail Montoya who writes, hey, John, I had never heard of Shogun, but that trailer got me hooked, as it should. Reminds me of The Last Samurai. Do I need to read the book first? Laters, John. Well, I mean, there are two things, Ismail. Number one, since I have not seen this iteration of it, I have no idea if it's something that you need to read the book first, though. But like most cases, the answer is probably no. The answer is probably you do not need to read the book first. I personally, as great as I think that Echo trailer was, and it was great. The Shogun trailer is better. It's just that I was expecting greatness from the Shogun trailer, whereas I am shocked by how good the Echo trailer is, right? But if you guys have not seen the Shogun trailer, definitely go and check it out. And Ismail, yeah, I think we're probably going to be pretty safe that you don't have to read the book first. Although I do recommend the book. It's really good. All right, Raymond Verrata writes, just finished 2 shows from the Roganverse, Goldberg and Kripke. Gen V finale was incredible, and season 2, and Invincible, season 2 premiere, always visceral and mind-blowing. Yeah, I don't know. Did you have a chance, Chris, to watch? I know it came out yesterday. You didn't see Did you see Invincible season 1?
I did. I loved Invincible season 1. I loved the first episode, just waiting for everyone to see the end to be like, you think this is a sweet show. You think it's about a nice Peter Parker boy.
If I didn't like the episode already, the first episode, then that post-credit scene, that is one of the biggest, what the hell is happening moments I've ever seen in television. Season 2, strong start. It's doing the whole multiverse and blah. Ugh, so bored of it. But that being said, solid start. I like the Mahler twins very much. Those are two characters that I really dug from the first season. So they're prominent in the first episode of season 2. Very strong start, and I'm looking forward to seeing where this season goes. All right. Let's keep going here. Next up, thanks for that, Raymond. We've got also Raymond Verada, Echo trailer, Tracksuit Mafia is back. Oh, they better have the Tracksuit Mafia. But you know what? The tone of this trailer does not seem to indicate a lot of Tracksuit Mafia goodness. Bro. Yeah, I don't see it, but I'm not going to lie. I'll be kind of excited if they do put the Tracksuit Mafia in there. Dwayne Fernandez writes, hey guys, I'm excited for Echo now. And also, since we see Daredevil and Kingpin in the trailer, again, I don't remember seeing Daredevil in there, but all right. In the trailer, who knows, maybe they might be, that they might make Born Again TV MA2. Again, yes, but I'm going to be honest with you guys. That will not make the show any better. Oh, we see a boobie. We see a boobie in this show. Oh, now this show is what who cares? If it's going to be a good show, it's going to be a good show. If it's great characters, if it's a great narrative, if they have depth to it, if it gives you an emotional experience, that's all great. Brain matter on the wall and showing me a boobie is not what's going to make the difference between me thinking it's a good show or a bad show. But that's just me. But
I don't want to kink shame any of you, but if you do see a boobie, don't say it like that.
Some of us are 12 years old, Chris.
Don't greet the boobie that way.
The boobie. All right, let's keep going here. That was Dwayne Fernandez, I think. Yes, it was. Chris Miner writes, Curb season 12 is announced. Really? I didn't know that, and I am pumped. Listen, we were just talking about this the other day. Larry David's Curb Your Enthusiasm is really genius. For those of you who know who Larry David is, he was one of the creators of Seinfeld with Jerry Seinfeld. And his show Curb Your Enthusiasm has been an HBO staple. And it's you got to watch. It's a particular style of humor, but my God, I think it's really effective. Dwayne Fernandez writes, Gen V's season finale was great. Absolutely was. Can't wait for season 2. More than that, Dwayne, it made me really excited for The Boys season 4. Because they really did wait to the last second to show a connection and a tie between Gen V and where season 4 may go. And I'm really glad they didn't make it an integral part of Gen V, but rather kind of threw it in there at the end. I thought that was the perfect way to do it, and it's made me very excited for it. All right. We got just a couple more here, guys. Disgraceful Entertainment writes, I've been a big supporter of Echo since Hawkeye. I thought she was badass, and I'm glad the trailers look good. Well, listen, I'll tell you what, Disgraceful, I'm glad you feel that way. I did not. I've said it before, I'll say it again. I thought when you look at this person on paper, you could have a super interesting character. And I just thought the way they executed her in Hawkeye was a waste. I actually came away, because you should come out of a series being excited about a character now. I came out of that series less excited about the character. I just didn't think they did a good job with her. And so I've had no enthusiasm, no excitement for this whatsoever. But that's the power of a trailer, man. Because this one trailer completely changed my perspective on the possibilities of what this show can be. Certainly a lot better than their appearance in Hawkeye. And again, I now really feel like it was a mistake to put her in Hawkeye, because if this trailer had been the first exposure that people had to Echo in the MCU, I think there'd be even more excitement about it. Because not just all the background of Echo, a deaf character, an amputee character. I mean, there's so many interesting things that we do not see in these other hero characters. There's a lot they can do here, and this trailer has made me excited to see it, Disgraceful. All right, next up, Disgraceful also writes, the new Rockstar said it best last night's episode of Loki was the Infinity War, and now we're in the end game. Listen, I should point out here, new Rockstars are in the same agency family that I'm in. We share the same representation, New Rockstars and I. So, but let me say this, I completely disagree with that assessment. There was nothing about last night's episode that was Infinity War. Infinity War was a glorious standalone 3-act structure, marvelous classic of the comic book genre. The episode of Loki last night, and I have, you guys know, I have really enjoyed this season of Loki a lot. Can't wait for the finale. But last night's episode, for those of you who weren't around a little bit earlier, it didn't feel like an episode. It felt like the first part of an episode that was really dragged out. It was very much a bridge episode without a lot actually happening. So when all is said and done, when I rank the season 2 episodes, episode 5 is going to probably be on the bottom of my list. It wasn't terrible. Again, I just felt like all the stuff that happened in that episode should have happened in the first 15, 20 minutes of an episode and then had another 30 minutes after it. But, but I do not at all consider last night's episode the Infinity War of the series. But that's just me. That doesn't mean other people can't feel that way. All right. Next up, Dragon 10 writes, I wasn't a fan of the Echo trailer and thought that the dialogue was quite generic. You have a rage inside you. I haven't heard that before. Well, I mean, to be fair, Dragon 10, there isn't a line of dialogue you've never heard before. Period. Any line of dialogue that can be said other than characters' names, you've heard before. The question is, in the context, how does that line land in the context and in the emotion of the situation? Does it feed into the narrative string that they've been putting along? And the way they use that particular line in that setting, I thought was quite good. I mean, Chris, I don't know about you. I didn't find there to be a whole ton of dialogue in the trailer. There's not a whole ton of it, but I thought that basic narration that Kingpin was doing throughout it, and I say this as somebody who has not cared at all about this show. I didn't find anything personally wrong with the dialogue that we heard coming out of it. Did you?
No, I enjoyed it. Well, and also you got to go back to so much comic book dialogue too, right? When you hear it in a movie or a TV show, sometimes for us, we freak out about it, but sometimes it can sound very stilted. Certain epic comic book lines, Avengers Assemble, in the wrong hands can sound ridiculous. Right? Yeah. Chris Evans made it work and we all freaked out. We lost our goddamn minds. But I think that rage line made total sense because not only was it a truth, but it's a comparative.
All right. Next up, we are going to, that was Dragon 10. Now we move on to our final question of the day. It comes to us from Devin Lida, who writes, I'm with Madam Carr. Hopefully Disney will explore more mature terrain, even if it brings on filthy happy birds. I don't know what that means. At any rate, but what does more mature mean? Like, what does that mean? Like, when you go into, there's very mature themes in Captain America Winter Soldier. There's very mature themes. Granted, it's peppered with a bunch of jokes, but there's very mature themes in Thor Ragnarok. Like Thor loses his father dies. Asgard, his home, the eternal city, is destroyed. He loses his eye. He's forced to help murder his own sister. Like, there's a lot of Shakespearean heavy, mature stuff that is in that movie. It's surrounded by a lot of humor, but that doesn't take away from like the heaviness that's there. So what do we mean by mature? Do we mean we have to see brains splatter out of the skull when it gets shot? Does it mean we have to see boobies? Does it mean like, how has Marvel not explored mature themes? I don't know, Chris, how would you address that?
Well, I saw that comment and went, did I say that today? So for me, if it is mature, what I keep saying here is I really want character-driven stories. Right? I like when, like comics, we use these characters to explore certain topics too that make them a bit more palatable for people, right? The big thing about comic books, graphic novels has always been social commentary, political commentary. No matter how many times you want to tell me, oh, everything's so woke these days. Comics have always been woke in the truest sense of the actual word, not the appropriated sense that gets thrown around when we're talking about snowflake this and that and the other. I also think a lot of times too, we don't need to dive into the shiny fun of a superhero. Love that stuff. But there's also somebody behind that mask. And I think exploring those family dynamics, the loss, the sacrifices a hero makes, those are really interesting things too. And most films have been doing that. I think we also just don't have to have as many yucks, along the way. We can have a sophisticated cinematic film that happens to have superheroes in it.
And all right, guys, that'll do it for today's installment of the John Campea Show podcast. Thank you so much for being here and making this show part of your day. Big special thank you to all you guys who sent in those super chats. Number one, because you gave us really fun, interesting things to talk about. But number two, you supported this channel as you did it, and all of us involved with the show. Thank you guys so very much for your support. I want to thank Chris Carr for being here with us today. Chris, where can people find you online and your voice coaching?
You can find me on Instagram. It's Chris Carr. And then if you were interested in voiceover coaching, speakfriendstudios.com, excuse me. Same for Instagram. Come take some classes with us. I teach voiceover. Logan teaches dialects. It's a gas. It's fun.
And you guys can just follow me on Instagram simply at John Campea. Guys, that'll do it for us for now today. Thanks so much for being here. And until next time, my friends, bye-bye.